The reading of my parents' will took place in the same oak-paneled law office where my father had conducted his business deals for 30 years. My sister Katherine sat beside me, designer handbag perched in her lap, barely concealing her triumphant smirk. And to our eldest daughter, Katherine Morgan Hayes, the lawyer read, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses, we leave the family investment portfolio, valued at approximately $12 million, our penthouse in Manhattan, and all associated business holdings of Morgan Industries. Katherine's perfectly manicured hand squeezed my arm in mock sympathy. She knew what was coming. And to our younger daughter, Eleanor Morgan, the lawyer continued, his voice carrying a hint of awkwardness, we leave the old family farm in Cedar Grove, including all structures and associated land. The farm. 50 acres of supposedly worthless land that hadn't been worked in 20 years. With a dilapidated farmhouse our grandfather had lived in until his death 10 years ago. The property my father had always called his greatest disappointment. That's it? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Well, Katherine piped up, her voice dripping with false concern, it's fitting really. I mean, I did graduate from Harvard Business School while you... She paused for effect, chose to study agricultural science at a state college. The lawyer cleared his throat uncomfortably. There is one additional note regarding the farm property. Your grandfather insisted this envelope be delivered to whoever inherited the farm, to be opened only after the will reading. He handed me a weathered envelope, my grandfather's distinctive handwriting spelling out, for the heir to Cedar Grove Farm. Katherine laughed, gathering her designer coat. Probably his old seed catalogs. Or maybe a collection of rusty tractor parts. She stood, smoothing her silk dress. Don't worry, Ellie. When you're ready to sell that worthless plot, I'll take it off your hands. Maybe build a summer home there. I clutched the envelope, remembering the summers I'd spent with Grandpa on that farm. How he taught me about the land, about patience, about watching and waiting for the right moment. Everyone thought he was just a simple farmer who'd lost touch with modern business. But I remembered the gleam in his eye whenever he'd talk about the real value of Cedar Grove. I think I'll hold on to it for now, I replied quietly. Suit yourself, Katherine shrugged. I need to go anyway, board meeting at Morgan Industries. We're discussing expansion plans. He paused at the door. You know, Dad always said you were just like Grandpa, more interested in dirt than dollars. After she left, I sat alone in the office, turning the envelope over in my hands. Grandpa had been different in his final years. Secretive, spending hours in his study making mysterious phone calls. Everyone assumed he was just becoming senile. But I'd seen the maps, the geological surveys he'd hidden whenever anyone came near. Back in my small apartment, I finally opened the envelope. Inside was a single key and a note in Grandpa's careful script. Dear heart. They all thought I was crazy spending my final years puttering around that old farm. Your father never understood why I refused to sell, even when the land seemed worthless. But you, Eleanor, you always saw what others missed. The key opens the door in my study behind the bookshelf. What you find there will change everything. Remember what I taught you. True wealth isn't always what it seems. Love, Grandpa. My hands trembled as I read the note again. The study behind the bookshelf. In all my years at the farm, I'd never known there was a hidden door. My phone buzzed. Katherine sending a group message to the family. First day as CEO of Morgan Industries. Celebrating with champagne. Sorry you couldn't be here, Ellie. Hope the farm's dirt is good company. I looked at the key, then at my sister's message and smiled. Something told me Grandpa's last secret was going to make that champagne taste a lot less sweet. The drive to Cedar Grove Farm the next morning felt different, charged with anticipation. The old gate creaked as I pushed it open, the weathered Morgan family farm sign hanging crooked above. Katherine had always mocked this place, but I remembered Grandpa's words. The best treasures are often hidden in plain sight. The farmhouse stood exactly as it had for decades, white paint peeling, wraparound porch sagging slightly. But today it felt less like a relic and more like a vault waiting to be opened. I made my way to Grandpa's study, my boots echoing on the hardwood floors. The room smelled of old books and leather, his ancient desk still covered with geological maps and surveys. The massive oak bookshelf dominated the far wall, and now looking carefully, I noticed something odd about its placement. It took an hour of careful examination before I found it, a nearly invisible seam behind a row of agricultural almanacs. My hands shook as I pressed gently, and with a soft click, a section of the shelf swung outward. Behind it was a steel door with a simple keyhole. The key from the envelope fit perfectly. Inside was a room that made my heart stop. "Oh my God, Grandpa," I whispered. "You knew." The walls were covered with professional geological surveys, core samples carefully labeled and stored in cases, and detailed maps with areas marked in red. But what caught my eye was the large safe in the corner, and beside it, a more recent envelope with my name on it. "Dear Eleanor, if you're reading this, then all my research was correct. The worthless farm everyone mocked contains one of the largest lithium deposits in North America. Those core samples prove it. The mining rights alone are worth billions. But that's not all. Check the safe. The combination is your birthday. Love, Grandpa. Peace. I've already had everything legally protected. The mineral rights are tied to the land deed. Whoever owns the farm owns it all. My birthday, 0517 opened the safe easily. Inside were detailed contracts, mineral surveys verified by 3 independent companies, and preliminary offers from mining corporations dating back 5 years. Grandpa had discovered the lithium deposits years ago but had kept it quiet, waiting for the right moment. My phone buzzed, another message from Katherine. "Just closed my first major deal as CEO. Remember when you wanted to take over Dad's company? Thank God he knew better." I smiled, picking up one of the core samples. According to the analysis, this single sample was worth more than Morgan Industries' entire quarterly profit. Just then my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Morgan," a professional voice asked. "This is Thomas Chin from Global Mining Corporation. We had an arrangement with your grandfather to contact the heir to Cedar Grove Farm 1 week after the property transfer. I believe you've found his research room by now." "Yes," I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Yes, I have." "Excellent. Our latest surveys suggest the lithium deposits are even larger than initially estimated. Would you be interested in meeting to discuss our offer? Our starting figure is in the 3 billion range." I thought of Katherine celebrating her new CEO position, of my father's dismissal of the farm, of all the times they'd mocked my interest in the land. "Actually," I said, "I have a better idea. How would you feel about a partnership? One where we develop the land properly, sustainably, using my agricultural science background to ensure we do this right." That would be perfect, Ms. Morgan. Your grandfather mentioned you might say that. He said you were the only one who truly understood the value of doing things the right way. I looked around the secret room at my grandfather's meticulous research, at the future he'd carefully prepared. "One more thing, Mr. Chin. Let's keep this quiet for now. I have a family board meeting to attend next week and I'd like to make it memorable." After hanging up, I sat in Grandpa's old leather chair, holding the core sample that was worth more than everything Katherine had inherited. "True wealth isn't always what it seems," I repeated his words, smiling. The supposedly worthless farm had just made me one of the richest people in the country. And my dear sister didn't have a clue. The week before the Morgan Industries board meeting passed in a whirlwind of secret meetings and careful planning. While Katherine filled social media with posts about her brilliant leadership of our father's company, I worked with Global Mining Corp to structure a deal that would revolutionize the industry. I kept the farmhouse exactly as it was, letting Katherine drive past occasionally to smirk at its deteriorating condition. Each time she sent a mocking text about my inheritance, I added it to a special folder labeled Receipts. The morning of the board meeting arrived bright and clear. I dressed carefully in a bespoke suit that cost more than Katherine's car, though she wouldn't know that yet. The lithium mining contracts were safely tucked into my briefcase, along with something special from Grandpa's safe. Katherine's executive assistant did a double take when I walked into Morgan Industries headquarters. "Miss Eleanor? The shareholders' public gallery is on the 3rd floor. Actually," I smiled, "I'm here for the board meeting. But that's for major shareholders only." I handed her my credentials. "Trust me, I qualify." The boardroom fell silent as I walked in. Katherine, at the head of the table, nearly dropped her premium coffee. "Ellie, what are you doing here? This is a private meeting for major shareholders and potential investors," I finished for her, taking a seat directly opposite. "Which is exactly why I'm here." "Please," she laughed, though uncertainty tinged her voice. "The only thing you own is that worthless farm." Interesting choice of words, I replied, opening my briefcase. Before we begin, I thought I'd share some information about that worthless property. I nodded to my team from Global Mining Corp, who had quietly entered behind me. They began distributing folders to the board members. What is this? Katherine demanded, flipping through the pages. Then her face went pale. This can't be right. Oh, but it is, I smiled. The largest lithium deposit in North America, right under that old farm. Confirmed by 3 independent surveys. Current market value. I paused for effect. Just over $4 billion. And that's just the initial estimate. The boardroom erupted in chaos. Board members frantically read through the geological reports while Katherine sat frozen, her perfect manicure crumpling the papers. But that's our family land, she finally sputtered. Father would have known. Actually, I pulled out one final document from my briefcase, the one I'd found in Grandpa's safe. According to this letter from Dad to Grandpa, he did know. Or at least he suspected. Here's the interesting part. I read aloud. You were right about Eleanor. She's the only one who understands the true value of the land. Katherine would sell it for a quick profit, but Eleanor, she'll do it right. Katherine's face turned an interesting shade of red. You're lying. Would you like to see the signature? Or maybe the notary seal? Dad wrote this 3 months before he died. Right after my graduation from that worthless state college agricultural science program. The board members were whispering now, calculating the implications. Morgan Industries' entire market cap was less than the value of my lithium deposits. So, I continued pleasantly, I'm here to propose a partnership. Morgan Industries can have exclusive rights to the lithium processing under certain conditions. What conditions? One of the board members asked eagerly, ignoring Katherine's attempts to silence him. First, we do this sustainably, using my agricultural expertise to ensure minimal environmental impact. Second, I smiled at my sister, we need new leadership. Someone who understands that true value isn't always in flashy deals and Harvard degrees. You can't do this. Katherine stood up, her designer chair scraping back. I'm CO. Actually, the board chairman cleared his throat. Given these developments, perhaps we should discuss a leadership transition. As Katherine's perfectly crafted world began to crumble, I pulled out one final item from my briefcase. An old photo of Grandpa and me on the farm, taken the day he told me about watching and waiting for the right moment. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong, it's proving them wrong while revolutionizing an entire industry. 1 year later, I stood on the renovated porch of the farmhouse, which now served as the headquarters for Morgan Grove Sustainable Mining Corporation. The peeling paint and sagging boards had been restored to their original glory, preserving Grandpa's home while incorporating state-of-the-art sustainable mining technology. Latest quarterly reports, my assistant announced, handing me a tablet. The environmentally friendly lithium extraction process you developed has become the industry standard. 3 major competitors have already licensed our patents. I smiled, watching workers in the distance using the revolutionary mining techniques I'd designed, ones that preserved the topsoil and maintained the farm's agricultural viability. Grandpa's worthless farm was now producing both lithium and organic crops, proving that progress and preservation could coexist. And Katherine? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Currently working as a junior sustainability consultant at our European office. Her mandatory, ground-up training program is going, interestingly. Yes, I'd given my sister a job, after she'd lost everything. But on my terms. She was learning about real value, starting with 6 months of actual farm work before moving into entry-level positions. Her designer suits had been replaced by work clothes, her manicured nails now regularly dirty from hands-on experience. My phone buzzed, a message from the board chairman, quarterly shareholders meeting in an hour. Katherine's first presentation on sustainable farming practices. I chuckled, remembering how she'd once mocked my agricultural science degree. Now she was giving presentations on crop rotation and soil conservation. Ms. Morgan. My assistant interrupted my thoughts. Your parents' old penthouse just came on the market. Katherine can't afford the maintenance anymore. Buy it, I decided. Convert it into a renewable energy research center. And make sure the dedication plaque mentions Grandpa. I walked to Grandpa's study, now a state-of-the-art research facility that still maintained its original character. The hidden room had been preserved exactly as he'd left it, though now it was a museum piece, showing visitors how one man's vision had transformed an industry. A commotion at the main gate caught my attention. A line of luxury cars was pulling up, board members arriving for the meeting. Among them I spotted Catherine's much more modest